When I was younger, I loved playing video games. Friendly but competitive matches with my friends, experiencing fascinating stories, or simply overcoming a challenge. It mattered little. But as I got older, something changed. Friends grew apart, and other aspects of life took over the limited amount of free time I had available. Some time ago, I asked myself if it was possible to capture those feelings again. My name is Svet, and I would be delighted if you joined me on this journey a decade later to see if I can once again experience the joy of gaming. This time, I experienced the dark but beautiful. Raised with the mantra, don't set your expectations too high, it is better to be pleasantly surprised than disappointed. I tried to keep my expectations low. I hadn't played a platformer for over a decade, and I can feel my hands hurt just thinking about how I was going to grab a controller with a grip that would make the plastic squeak and my knuckles widen when I failed that jump for the 1000th time or died to a stupid boss for the millionth. But with review after review calling this game the best Metroidvania game in a long time, I couldn't rein in my expectations. What if it was good? Could it let me relive that magic feeling I felt so many years ago when I was younger? There was only one way to find out. When the game started, I was stunned. I had seen some screenshots on the internet, but it couldn't compare to how incredibly it looked in action. The combination of smoothly animated assets with the beautiful backgrounds, backed by brooding music, portrayed a dark world that was alluring yet frightening. As I started to explore the caverns, I got familiar with the controls. A simple jump, the longer you held down the button, the higher to jump, and a swing with a weapon. Press once for every swing, with a short cooldown in between swings. And I could heal myself by holding down a button and spending a resource that built up by striking enemies. Simple enough. As I continued to explore, I soon found myself asking, where should I go? While I was somewhat familiar with this genre of games, knowing that exploration and backtracking to earlier parts with new tools are what these games are all about, I continued to find myself wanting some form of guidance. Where's my next objective? Am I even in the right area? Sure, I had a map, but some kind of marker showing where I had not gotten the tools to progress yet would be nice. I can't even remember how many times I tried to get to the same dead end and cursing myself for not remembering that I couldn't go there yet. Despite the minor setbacks with finding my way around the caverns, after a couple of hours I got into the flow of the game. I started to remember the layouts of the map, and just as I started to find the limits of my toolkit, defeating a boss and gaining a new tool for exploration or combat was right around the corner. Eventually I got used to the respawn system. Resting at a bench refills your hit points and sets your respawn point to that bench. Getting killed lost you your money and sent you back to the latest respawn point you activated, but left a ghost behind. When you defeated it, you got all your money back. So as long as you could make it back to where you died, you were not really penalized for getting killed. I may sound like a broken record, but again, just as I familiarized myself with a game mechanic, it proved to be just what I needed to progress. As platforming through the rooms became more difficult and bosses required more tries, I found myself planning ahead which spawn point would provide the smoothest way to try it again. And try again I did. Some rooms and most bosses required more tries than I would like to admit. The game had a steep difficult curve, and I had to try again and again and again to keep progressing. I got better in small increments, but as soon as I felt I had a handle on things, the difficulty spiked again. Only for it to suddenly drop as I entered an area I guess I was already supposed to have cleared. And while the story started out as a mystery that you uncovered piece by piece by meeting a new vendor or another adventurer who gave small clues on what had happened, I still fully don't understand why I should be doing all this. I got some small tidbits about a fallen kingdom and some kind of disaster that led to its fall. Other than that, I couldn't really tell you what was going on. While I recognize that a cryptic story told by environmental storytelling is very fitting, and while some characters gave vague comments on where to go and what to do, it would have been nice to at least know which area you were supposed to go next. Once most of the map was revealed and most of the upgrades were acquired, I had tired of the gameplay loop. I still had fun when I found an adequate challenge, but those were far and few between. The gameplay consisted mainly of traversing the map to get to an area I hadn't gone to before, getting through that area and find some small collectible. This was divided so the majority of these areas were far too easy due to having tools that were clearly designed for making the backtracking of these areas easier. While a few of the areas were fun to explore, and how to figure out to traverse them was a challenge. The bosses were a whole other thing. Sure, I could appreciate the process of identifying and learning to avoid their attacks, but my skills were clearly not at the level that the game expected me to be at. This made the bosses a slog to get through, and I found that the easiest way to defeat them was to just avoid their attacks and use a charm that summons small spiders to attack enemies. As these spiders does very little damage, this made the fights go on for far too long to be fun. But it was the only way for me to progress through the game. I simply did not have the skills to both avoid the attacks thrown at me and make my own attacks hit. I know I just need to get better at the game, but as it was, the game was either too difficult or too easy. By the time I had cleared to the point that the final boss was available, I was relieved. Finally, I could finish the game. I was fully aware that the 61% completion I had wouldn't bring me a good ending. But at this point, I felt so burned out that I really didn't care. The non-guided design of the game had taken its toll on me. I had scurried around for far too long, unable to figure out where to go and what I was supposed to do. I do fully understand that every criticism of the game so far has its roots in how I am playing the game. I would probably have found more enjoyment if I had more patience and kept improving over a longer period of time. As the last boss fell and the credits rolled, I felt a mix of emotions. I felt disappointed. I felt that if I hadn't rushed straight to the last boss when it was available, I could have discovered so much more. I had missed so much of the game. But as the credits ended and the title screen showed once again, I felt satisfied. I remembered how much frustration I felt against the later bosses, and how I had started to despise the unguided nature of the exploration, and how many times I had almost given up and walked away. As it stands now, after about 20 hours of playing, I feel satisfied with what I have experienced. I have no regrets about not getting every collectible, about not killing every optional boss. I have no doubts that had I been in a different time of my life, I would have played the game until nothing lies undiscovered. Every boss would have been slain, every item found, every piece of side content completed. But now I felt done. My journey through Hollow Nest was done, and I had gotten the experience I deserve. I have no criticism against this game regarding how it's structured. The beautiful visuals, coupled with dark yet hopeful soundtrack and a cryptic story that is open for interpretation, topped off with masterfully executed gameplay. I can absolutely understand why this game is so highly regarded as it is. However, it is not the game for me. I have no regrets about playing through it, but I will not return to complete it anytime in the near future. I currently have no desire to experience other eventual endings or to challenge myself against any of the other bosses. That may, however, change in the future, depending on how fondly I will remember this experience in the coming months. As a conclusion to all this, Hollow Knight is a masterpiece, and I am glad to have experienced it. However brief my time with it has been, I have to move on to other games if I am to understand what made the younger me so enamored with games. If you have any suggestion for games I should experience, write them down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I will see you on the next step on my journey to rediscover the joy of gaming.